Hi, in this video, I would like to show you how you can create a new customer on the commercetools project using TypeScript SDK and also via GraphQL. Mainly aimed to show a GraphQL mutation, how you can do it. And let's get started. And I have my project, which I'm going to use it for in this demo. It's there. And let's get started. And this will show you how to use the commercetools or TypeScript SDK and GraphQL. And I've already shown you the getting started TypeScript SDK and the GraphQL. And I already have also a project which is getting started with the GraphQL, and which basically brings the project settings. So I basically have a project with some basic settings required for the TypeScript SDK and GraphQL. So I won't be covering those basic setup steps. So for that, you definitely have to refer this getting started steps. Okay, let's get into action. I'm going to set up custom.js file. So create a new file called customer.js in this directory. Add the following code. So I'm going to create a new file called customer.js. It is an empty file. And I'm going to copy this code, which is basically same thing, same step we did it in the getting started guide. And only change I can see is that it's a demo using GraphQL and TypeScript SDK and for the new customer creation. So it says try to run this, and I should get this message if everything is correct. Run this. Yes, I get this message. So the basic setup looks good. And create an API client. Assume already done the getting started guide. So it assumes that I already did this. So I can copy this code and directly placing it here as a next place. I can do this, and I have to replace your project key, auth URL, client scope, and API URL, and the project key. I'll copy it from the earlier. Or you don't want to replace the values, you can copy this code snippet from the project.js. So I'm going to copy this code snippet from the project.js file. I think this from here, line number 16 to 42. I can get it from here because I already added those values, updated my project key and the auth URL, API URL, and the scope, and so on. So I could just quickly replace, actually I don't even need, I just have to replace these four, because these strings doesn't change. So I'm gonna copy them and replace this. Then I have this project key, host, URL, which is basically the auth URL, and the scope and the host. So this looks good. I basically didn't update it, but I instead used replace the code and create a GraphQL query and mutation and add the following code. So I'm going to add one by one a new customer data. So this is to add a new customer, and an email, and a password, and first name and last name. Of course, I can add more fields, but I want to keep this minimum. I think the mandatory fields required to create a new customer is email and password. And for more details, you can refer commercetools docs for customer draft, where you can find more information. There's a link to the customer draft where you can get more information on what fields are optional, what fields are mandatory. You can take a look, more details here. Okay, this is data, a new customer data. And let's move on to the next part, which is a mutation, which is to create a new customer, a GraphQL mutation to create a new customer is a create customer, and we pass this new customer data, that is this new customer data, and customer sign-up draft, which is of type customer sign-up draft. I'm going to show you here in my GraphQL interface. So I'm going to query. No, it's not a query, it's a mutation. I'm going to do a mutation. So it's a create customer sign-up. It's not create customer, it's a customer sign-up. So customer sign-up as a draft, which is customer sign-up draft, and you can see which fields it can take. So that's what it is, and customer sign-up draft. And I'm going to copy this. And as a return, I'm just looking for getting these values, but I can also, I don't need these values. I just need only the, to get only the ID if I want. I can also minimize this. And okay, GraphQL query to get a customer email and first name by ID. So this is a query to retrieve the newly created customer. So I'm going to copy this. Also, I'm going to place it here. Get customer by ID query. So it basically passes the ID and it uses the customer ID and retrieves the email and first name for that particular customer with that this particular ID. Okay, and of course there is a GraphQL environment where this is the place called GraphQL. You can play around with it and you can see, look into the docs and see what's possible, what's not possible, and so on. So for example, I can query this. The customer is null. I think maybe I will get some customer which is existing. Hopefully with that, let's see, I'm going to get this customer. I'm going to copy this customer. And I'm going to replace this value with this customer ID. I should get a customer email. Yes, I get it. So, okay, this looks good. Now let's call an API to create a new customer using TypeScript SDK and also the GraphQL, of course. So we have prepared our GraphQL queries already in this step. In this step, we kind of make a preparation to call an API. So add the following code to customer.js. So I think the first code is create new customer. It's basically a TypeScript SDK which calls a GraphQL post with a create customer mutation and the variable create customer mutation variable, which is basically customer data, and execute it. Once we get a result, and we are interested in getting the customer ID, and we return that customer ID. Okay, so let's copy this code, new customer ID, and this one is get customer by ID. This is a query, this is a GraphQL query. We pass a customer ID, and using the TypeScript SDK for GraphQL, and we post a customer query, and we also pass the customer ID as a variable, and that way we can get the customer data. I'm also going to copy this, I'm going to paste it here, and finally we have to execute this function. So I'm going to use this anonymous function to execute as soon as I execute this node customer.js. Let's copy this code. Let's see what's happening here. So here there is a create new customer, and once the new customer is created, it returns an ID, the customer ID, and using that newly created customer ID, we get a customer by ID where we get newly created customer data, and with that we're gonna, once this is successful, we display this newly created customer info. If there is an error, message will be shown. And just want to show that in the get customer ID by query, we are calling this to get only email and first name. And let's see, create customer mutation. I think it is this one. No, it's not the one. It's a variable. It's called create customer mutation. It's a create customer mutation, and let's see the get customer by query. So it's create customer by query, and I think we have to use this get customer by query. So I think we are all done, and now the last step is to execute this code snippet. If everything is correct, we should be able to see that newly created customer on our Merchant Center, and also this error, the successful message. So let's give a try. I'm gonna do this. I can copy. I've already copied this. I'm gonna paste this. I'm gonna execute it. Okay, newly created customer info, data, customer, u.test, first name, your first name, and status code is 200. So what we thought, it's currently working fine. That's great. And we can also validate here in the customer list. I can reload it. You can see here that your first name, your last name, your.test.com. New customer is created on this date with this time. And this is successful. So now you know that how you can use mutation, how you can do query in GraphQL, and how you can use TypeScript, commercetools TypeScript SDK, and to perform some GraphQL actions. I hope this is helpful. Thank you very much.